Good afternoon, everyone. It is truly a pleasure to be with you and to share some time with you to talk about a few things that I have in mind. If you were in one of the earlier sessions, I'm not going to squat because I might need somebody to come in here and help me get back up. But I would like to do one thing. I'd like you all to stand. Please stand. I know if you've been walking around, just stand for a second. They don't need lights on them, but that's okay. All right, so I want you to move to your right. Take a step to your right. All right. Now take a step to your left. Step back. Step forward. All right, and now you can be seated. You want to know why I did that? Because when I retell it, I'm going to tell them I moved the whole audience. So I'm excited to be here, and as you can see, that the title is "The Power of Us: Men Making a Difference in Their Communities," and I want to focus in on mentoring through the miracle of mentoring. And I want to give you some context to this because I believe that my own personal story really accentuates the idea and the benefit of mentoring. I was born and raised in Akron, Ohio, not far from here. I am a first-generation college graduate, and mentoring really became a pathway to help me to achieve the things that I want. I really applaud UH and Dr. Vince and a whole number of individuals who've worked tirelessly for this particular program because we want to think about men's health in a comprehensive, holistic way, and that's what we're trying to do. And in particular, we're not just talking about one particular perspective when we think about our health, our overall health, right? We're not monolithic. And so in order for us to have true health, we have to think in a comprehensive way. So I start with this because what we're trying to do is to strive for balance, that there should be some balance in our overall health. And so when we think about that balance, we can see that we are thinking about socially, physically, professionally, things that give us pleasure. And someone made reference to the idea of not really taking time for vacation and things like that. We really do need to step back. And I know that's one of the areas that I struggle in, is that sometimes I can get in the zone and I'm doing all these things and I'm not really taking any time. But when we don't do that, it does harm our health in different ways, whether it is emotionally or whether it's physically. So we got to have balance. And we can see that our mental health, our spiritual health, our emotional health, materially, all these things really come together for, and I love the title, Men's Full Health, because we don't want to just focus on one thing, but we want to have a comprehensive look and approach. And when I think about the mentoring aspect, I think about, how do we do community engagement? How do we become active in our communities in ways that can make a difference, not only for ourselves, not only for our personal growth, but also for our community, because it really does strengthen the things that we're able to do. And so I wanted us to think about, this miracle of mentoring, because I believe that, when you look at all those different things, you can actually touch on every aspect of our comprehensive self when you think about mentoring. It can really bring us to, that social aspect and physical aspect and professional aspect. All of those things can be incorporated. So I wanted to, at first, look a little bit about my own story, because I think that it really helps illustrate what my experience was. And I wanted to focus in on my mentors, and I've had a lot of them. This doesn't mention all of them, and the one in particular that played a pivotal role in my development. But as I look at that, I list the first box really has my two older sisters. I come from a family of 5. I had 3 older sisters and a younger brother who came 9 years after me. So, my older sisters And you sisters will understand, they beat me into submission. Uh, but I look at them, and they were such pivotal mentors for me in my young development. You know, my oldest sister was and is a nurturer and an encourager, and was always there to provide that I needed, right? You know, my parents were there, I had my mother and father, and there was some drama going on there, but I had someone who built me up. And my other sister, you know, Liz, who's about to turn 70, she was the fun person. You know, she taught me how to dance and how to, how to enjoy myself. But that was part of my growth. I list this next couple of people because it was a young married couple from my church who spent time with me. And I mentioned Sandra. She was a social worker in Akron. And that was really my first real connection with people who were college educated, and to help me really normalize the notion of going on to college and advancing myself. And I always tell the story that when I was 16 years old, she gave me this packet of scholarship information, and I'm a pack rat. So at 16, she gave me this packet on potential scholarships. And when I ended up going to law school, many, many years later, I still had the same packet, and I went back to it and I actually got a scholarship that was on that list that she gave me when I was 16 years old, right? So, you know, those things kind of stay with you. As I go through, you know, the people that are in red are those who have gone on and no longer with us, but Wash McCall was a minister that was there and helped me in many different ways. In college, these are three gentlemen who are very pivotal: Elijah Anthony, Howard Wright, and Ron Wright. Now, Ron Wright eventually became the president of Cincinnati State Community College, but the other two were ministers, but it was just the way that they presented themselves, and I was just able to watch them and how they carried themselves, and it really touched me. Other professors, Paul Prill, Marlon Conley, and Connie Monty, and I'm speaking their names because it's powerful, and I think that we ought to do that when we think about our mentors. But they saw things in me that I probably didn't recognize and appreciate myself, and it really helped to shape me. When I went to law school, these are two law professors, Leroy Purnell and David Williams. They opened their homes, they encouraged us, they taught us, they shared their time with us. And these were not formal, none of these were formal mentoring programs. I want you to understand that, because sometimes we think you have to be in a formal program in order to impact people's lives, but they were not. And so it really did help me. Clyde Sales was the minister of the church I attended when I went through law school, and I ended up staying there. I came to Cleveland after growing up in Akron. I lived in Columbus for 35 years before I moved to Cleveland back to Northeast Ohio in 2020, but that had an impact. The next box are lawyers. John Waddy, most of you are familiar with Angela Stokes and Cordelia Glenn, who are Clevelanders who worked for the State Attorney General's office and eventually came back here, but they were older lawyers when I started my career as an Assistant Attorney General for the state of Ohio. And so they were there to kind of say, okay, don't do this, do that, watch your path, et cetera. And so it really did have an impact on my development. John Waddy is a lawyer who's still in Columbus who did wonderful things. Professionally, I list Gregory Williams and Nancy Rogers. Gregory Williams was the dean of Ohio State University's law school, and I came to work there. And actually, we just lost him. He just passed away. But one of the things that he helped me to see is how to bring my authentic self to the professional environment. So I was transitioning from the practice of law, and I had these things in my mind about how I was supposed to present myself. And so I invited him to church with me on a day that I was actually speaking. And so when I spoke, he asked me, well, who's that guy that was speaking in the pulpit? Now, you're yourself up there. And so his point is that in the professional setting, I was actually holding back. And sometimes that happens to us professionally, where we don't bring our authentic selves to the professional space. for whatever reason it is, whether we think people can't handle it, they don't appreciate it. And so he helped me to understand that in order to really flourish and to thrive, I needed to bring my full self to that environment. And so that was really invaluable. Nancy Rogers also became the dean of the law school. She was one of my law professors. And she always asked me, well, what are your plans? What are you doing? She was always willing to give me guidance and to help me to figure things out. And so that was invaluable. But probably the person who had the greatest impact on me is this particular gentleman there. And you all can see I did have hair once. And that's his wife. That was at my wedding in 1990. But this man was actually a Bible school teacher at the church that I attended when I was growing up. And he had a high school education. He worked for B.F. Goodrich Rubber Tire Company. But he took an interest in me. He spent time with me. I mean, just the amount of time that he talked to me. And let me just say this. My father was in my home and my entire life growing up. So he was there. And sometimes we think that, well, if someone has a father in their home, then they don't need a mentor. And I say that's not the case, because we need as many people as possible to pour into us, because sometimes they can give us something that we had not gotten or hadn't considered. You know, my father was old school from the generation, roof over your head, clothes on your back, food in your belly. I'm doing a good job, right? And I don't fault him for that. But I recognize that there were a lot of other things that I needed in my social emotional development that for some reason, someone who had no obligation to me spent time with me and gave me. His impact was Winston Martin is his name. His impact was so profound that some years ago, there was a group of authors that they were writing a book. It's called Color Him Father, and it was portraits of positive black men as fathers. And many people were invited to submit an essay to be included in this book and this publication. So I wrote one about Winston Martin, right? So someone who I met in 1976, and I indicated that he spent time with me. He gave resources to my development. He gave me attention. He gave me love. He helped me to feel included. He never undermined my parents, that he was definitely there. He was consistent. And we lost him in 2022. But the legacy of what he did stayed with me, because one of the things I would always say is, you know, I would feel so grateful for all the things that he would do. And I would say, oh, one of these days I'm going to be able to pay you back, or I'm going to do this. And he would say, don't worry about that. Pass it on to somebody else. When you have the opportunity to do it, you carry that on. And that literally has been the mantra for my life since that time, when I was just a 13-year-old. That in my mind, I felt that someone poured into me, and I want to do everything that I can to pour into someone else. So why is mentoring so important? And we'll cover these principles, and we won't take up too much time. But improve personal and career development. That when we mentor, we can help to improve that personal and career development. And we have to understand that as we think about things professionally, we're not just talking about what happens on the job and this promotion, et cetera, but our personal development is closely tied to all those things. Next, it's leadership development, learning how to lead and how to follow and how to really come into ourselves in an important way. It builds community. And that's what we're talking about, men being involved in our communities and finding ways to become engaged. And it allows for reverse mentoring, right? We learn from other people. Let me tell you something. I have some young people in my office, and if without them, they even told me I had to, I held on to my iPhone 8 until just about a month ago, where I couldn't keep it any longer. So, you got to move up, you got to move up. And I didn't want to. I still had a button on my phone, for those of you who are smartphone users. And so, they helped me considerably figuring out, okay, now how do I close this and how do I work that? But those are the kinds of things that when you deal with younger people, even when you're mentoring, they really can help us to grow and help us to learn ourselves. And it supports a learning culture. We should always be interested in learning and growing and being better. So I want to unpack that a little bit more because I want to look at, what does improved personal and career development? And one of the mantras, and I have on my pen here because I'm a part of 100 Black Men of Greater Cleveland, which is part of a national organization, 100 Black Men of America, and I was one of the founders and a former president of the Central Ohio chapter before I moved to Cleveland. But one of our mantras is that what they see is what they will be. And I said before, it doesn't always have to be a formal engagement, but young people need to see you and watch you because you are giving examples of what they need and how they can move and act within our society. So just to be able to see it can help them conceptualize who they will be. When I think about some of the things that I saw when I refer back to Winston Martin, the mentor that had the greatest impact on my life, I saw how to resolve conflicts. I really did see that. I saw him move about and deal with things like that. I saw how to treat women with respect and honor. And these weren't like, all right, now, see here, young blood, and you do the, it's not a formal lesson. All you have to do is watch the respect. All you have to do is watch the honor, and it'll tell you lessons. I saw an incredible work ethic. I saw how to parent. How was love and discipline and all those things demonstrated? I saw the sense of style. I think I got some style, but I felt like it was influenced. And he used to love shoes. He kept his shoes polished and together all the time. And I do believe that I caught that from him. I saw strength and tenderness. And I point all this out. There's a whole host of things that you all can do. And I know that, our sisters tend to do this more intuitively. And so they're nurturing and teaching, and they'll speak up, girl, where you going looking like that? They're gonna talk to people, and they'll be an example. And I think that we can certainly emulate that in the things that we do. And so that can be very powerful. There's the leadership development aspect that comes with it as well. Since mentors, usually, we're typically older, right? And we've got some life experiences. And so we can really show the path to young people who are coming after us. I know that sometimes you will deal with knuckleheads and they think they know everything, but there's some things that we can teach and we can show that. And I believe that we should be enthusiastic about doing that. And understanding that leadership goes beyond the CEO, right? It includes leading our families and our communities. It can be a group or a committee at your church or a community organization. True leadership is not tied to the office one holds, and I think that that's what we tend to think, but rather how one manages, inspires, supports, and develops those around him or her. I think about, the leadership that I, certainly saw. There are aspects of leadership that I saw from my father, but also with my mother being a respected person in the community and how she would look after people. And, I grew up in a neighborhood where, I walked down the street and the common question was, "What your mama cooked today?" I spent time taking plates to people who were, bedridden and different things in the neighborhood, and that was a leadership aspect. I saw that our home was a place that, there might be a woman who's fleeing domestic abuse and staying in I grew up in a 2-bedroom house and we were 5 children, but yet we made room for somebody who needed a place to go. To me, that is leadership. And all of those examples can help us to develop in significant ways. The other part of this is that it builds community. Each of us stands on the shoulders of someone. None of us, I don't care how smart you are, I don't care what you know or how articulate you are and what you've done, we all stand on the shoulders of someone who laid a foundation for us. We are in this space today because someone invested time, someone marched, someone protested, someone fought, someone did all these things. We stand on the shoulders of someone else. And when we do mentor and when we invest in others, it helps us to build community. We are a collective, and our destinies are inextricably linked. We're not islands. We don't function just on ourselves, but we are connected to one another. Mentoring helps us think beyond ourselves and allows us to invest in others. So it's not just, what's going on with me or whatever, but let me think about how someone else is impacted and what's going on. And I say it allows for reverse mentoring, and I made some reference to it before. It's not just a one-way street. All relationships, communication goes both ways, to the mentors and from the mentees. This is how the communication goes. And as I indicated, when we think about the age differential, the younger generation certainly can teach us a whole lot of things. It can help us to understand perspective, and it's not just learning about technology and all that sort of thing, or teaching you how to do a TikTok, but it really is about understanding their perspective, and it can help us to better serve our communities and the things that we're doing. It supports a learning culture. We really do need to make sure that we have a learning culture. And in particular, right now we see so many things going on with books being banned and burned and things being taken out of schools. We really do need to make sure that we stay invested as a learning culture so that we can not only ourselves continue to grow until we come to the grave, but also make sure that those that we influence and those in our communities are constantly learning. Through bonds between people that may have never otherwise interacted, mentoring can facilitate a collaborative learning environment and knowledge sharing so that we can advance and grow. We should be perpetual students. We should never feel like, okay, I know it all, I've arrived. There's always something new for us to learn. I believe that mentoring really is core to thriving communities. And we can see all these things that touch upon how we come together. That if we want to thrive as a community, then we need to make sure that we're investing in other individuals. And I love this particular painting because the artist is Gilbert Young. He's actually a Cincinnati native. He was born there, and he lives in Atlanta. And it's entitled, "He Ain't Heavy." And many of you have probably seen this, and I think that even, more than 20 years ago, this print or this image had already sold more than 1 million copies, right? That it is so popular. But the message is so powerful, this notion that someone's reaching down and lifting someone else up. I've heard the term, and you all probably heard it as well, we lift as we climb, because even if we're not to where we should be, we can also climb ourselves, and that we're lifting as we're going. We don't have to wait until we get to a certain point professionally or a certain age in our lives to reach back and to help. And that's what we try to encourage, mentoring circles. I'm on the campus of Case Western Reserve University, and we're trying to help, our upper class students do some mentoring to the freshmen and the younger ones coming in, and get our graduate students to think about undergraduates. You don't have to get to a specific destination in order to be an effective mentor. A few more thoughts. And when we think about mentors, there's some needs and some perspectives. And this is, I love art, and so the banjo lesson, this is another piece of art that's pretty iconic. But mentors, if you're a mentor, you need to be authentic, no posing or posturing, be real, be 100, be all in, and be willing to really invest and to give whatever you have to give, but be humble, because we're always learning. I say be organized, and be considerate. Because when I say organize, we don't want to bring more chaos to someone's life, but we want to help bring some order and stability, and be considerate of whatever that person's needs are and how we can help. And some of us, it's a dual function, because you might be a mentee, and I would hope that each of us has someone who's pouring into us as we're pouring into someone else, because that's part of this cycle of our thriving communities. So as a mentee, you got to be open, right? I know you might feel like you got it all figured out, but there's something that we all can learn. I don't care how old we are. We can learn something new, and we can gain something, so we have to be open. We should be gracious, because when someone is mentoring, they are giving their time, their energy, their effort, and we need to be gracious about that. We should be considerate, right? Consider the fact that they're giving their time. Call them back, text them back, respond to them, be where we're supposed to be when we're supposed to be there. Be coachable. Please be coachable, because there's nothing worse than when you tell somebody something or you share something, and I realize that you don't have to take all my advice. You got some choices, but you get a little frustrated is that over and over and over again you're thinking, now I told you not to do that, and that's exactly what you went and did, right? And then you bump your head, and then you come back and you do it again and again and again. So be open and be coachable. If someone says, I would recommend that you take this path, give it a try and see, right? And figure it out and see if it works. And then be reflective. And it's really important that when someone is sharing with us, we have to look at ourselves in the mirror and make some decisions about what's the value of the information that the person shared with me. Am I truly being reflective? Am I truly taking it into consideration? Because, sometimes people can tell you something and they don't really understand the circumstances. They don't get the situation. And you might say that I really appreciate it. That's not going to work for me, right? And then you don't use it. But take the time to think about it. Even when we get constructive criticism, engage in that self-analysis and be reflective. But I think there's a next level to mentoring, and then we have to think about it. So we also have to think about going from just being a mentor to being a sponsor, right? So one, we should look for opportunities for the mentees. Sometimes when we know the situation, look for those opportunities and pass them on. Say, hey, you might be thinking about this, and connect them. Be the connector. Speak on their behalf in the rooms that they do not occupy. They might not be there to speak up for themselves, but you can be there and say, hey, have you considered this person? Be their advocate. Envision for them what they may not see for themselves. Because sometimes individuals are struggling, they don't really see it, they don't really have a vision for it, but you do. You see those qualities and those potentials, and you can do that. And I always say, be their hype man. Build them up and say, hey, you need to think about this particular person. You need to do all these things because it can make a difference. The final aspect of this is that the mentees need what I would call a board of directors. And one of the things and challenges that happens in mentoring is that we feel that we have to be everything to the mentee. And we may not necessarily be that. I mean, if you really want a strong mentoring relationship, then maybe the only area that the person needs from me is professional mentoring. Okay, you want to be a lawyer, I can tell you what the path is. I can tell you all about it. I can explain how to do it. You want to get into higher education, I can really guide you with that. Someone else may be a financial expert, and they can tell you how to invest your funds and how to move forward. Or someone else might be an entrepreneur, and they can help you with that. Someone else may have this, wonderful track record with relationships, and okay, I'm tell you how to, how you need to treat your spouse and how you need to be in relationships and all this sort of thing. So it's really almost like we all need this board of directors who have these variety of areas of expertise and perspective, and that those different individuals can really help us along the way. So that's what I say: general career, career specific. Relationships, community engagement, business, finance, spiritual. Those might all be different people, and some of it might overlap. But recognize that because someone wants to go to medical school and I'm not a physician, that doesn't mean that I can't mentor that person and help them. But you know, I'll help them as much as I can. But let me connect you to Dr. Vince now, because he's going to be able to help you to think through, you know, getting into medical school and how that's all going to work. And I can connect you to someone else. You know, you're trying to build your brand. Maybe Brady can help you. You know, he understands social media, understands marketing, understands all these things. Now, here's somebody you should talk to about that. And so that we're also connecting to other individuals that can really support and to help. I really do believe that that there is a space for us to make a difference in our communities. I believe that mentoring can be an incredible resource for us to do it, and I think that doing so creates that full health balance, that we're not only thinking about our physical development, our emotional development, our community development, but how we can uplift our communities and can become engaged by the miracle of mentoring. Now, those are the thoughts that I have for you, and I don't know if whether you want to do a Q&A or whether we're ready to wrap up. I want to be true to the time as well. So thank you very much for your attention, and we're going to turn it over to our illustrious MC to guide us from here. All right? Thank you.